Hello everybody and welcome to the Real Housewives Edit. My name is Elle and I'm here to talk about the two loves of my life, editing and housewives. Well you guys, it is the holiday season. I know I am late to changing my background to holiday, but I just had to do it for these last couple weeks of December because, you know, why not? And if the holiday season is tough for you, just know that I am here for you to provide all of the escape that you need. And as always, our housewives are here to give you that escape from whatever you might be dealing with. My heart is with you, so let's just have some fun today. Since right now in Potomac and Salt Lake City, it's kind of more of a tropical time and less of a holiday time, I thought maybe I would throw it back to some of the most iconic holiday scenes in our Housewives history. And so today I'm going to be covering an iconic scene in the Berkshires with Real Housewives of New York. Oh my gosh, rewatching this scene, I was just like, I miss this time so much. Maybe there's some controversy to even saying that. I don't even know what's controversial anymore these days. All I know is that I absolutely loved this era of Roni. I loved when Bethany was on. I know a lot of people don't really like her. I love her as a housewife. I think she's such a great addition. This season was so much fun, so it was so much fun revisiting this scene, and I hope you guys have fun too. Let's get in the spirit and let's get it started.
I'm calling you out on your because no one besides me has the balls to do it. You are a slut and a liar and a hypocrite.
Oh, very nice.
And a snake. Oh. That's the truth.
You know, I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, so right away, this is coming in on the Berkshires. We have the establishing shot of Bluestone Manor, and then we have Bethany calling Luann
a slut and a liar and a hypocrite.
Oh, very nice.
And a snake.
And then we immediately have Jules entering the scene. Now, what I'll say about this whole kind of thing at the Berkshires is it's really a slow build, all leading to Dorinda's meltdown. So all of this stuff, although it does seem consequential, you know, Bethany's calling Luann names and all this stuff, there's all sorts of little stories going on. But at the end of the day, this scene is all building up to Dorinda's famous speech, which we will get to at the end of this episode. But I just want you guys to keep that in mind watching all this, because although these moments feel dramatic, they're not like the tip of the iceberg dramatic, because they really are just a slow build getting us to that final monologue with Dorinda.
It's true. I can't believe the words that are coming out of my mouth. But I feel like I owe it to myself and everyone around us to just at least say my piece to her face.
How dare you stand
So,
up?
in all of the Housewives episodes, all of the confessionals, they seem to have a different flavor to them. This confessional in particular with Bethany talking about, you know, her behavior in this scene versus, you know, what's going on in her head. I would consider this what I would say is like a reaction confessional. Basically, Bethany's sitting there, you know, she's doing her confessional. She watched the scene back and she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe these words that are coming out of my mouth. It's also like the reaction of what she was feeling in that moment. Like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? We've all been there. We've all been saying stuff and been like, what is happening right now? Why am I saying this, right? But then we justify it somehow. And she justifies it by saying, you know, at least I'm saying all the stuff that, you know, I really mean. Of course, what I think is a great housewife thing is when they can justify literally any of their actions. I'm not saying their actions are justified. I'm just saying it's very much of a housewives thing to be able to justify literally anything. They come up with a way to justify it.
To just at least say my piece to her face.
How dare you stand here and point
I've
out
never
finger
called.
at me?
I am not a saint.
Oh, good. Walk out of the room.
I am going
Go
to.
ahead.
I am not
You know
a
what,
saint.
better, like, let
I'm
her
not
go
a saint.
out.
I
like,
should have stayed
you know what,
with
let's
you.
unpack.
You should have.
And they keep cutting to Jules kind of with this same sort of worried but like excited look on her face, like nervous, anxious, worried, but also like, ooh, there's drama going on. She's torn, right? But they keep cutting back to her to kind of give us, maybe we have that same reaction. Maybe it's sort of an anchor for us.
Should have.
Let's unpack her.
Yes, I should have.
Yes.
But she is a lot more humble and decent and lovely
Well-
than you will ever be.
You being Sonia's mentor is fucking
Listen, I'm
hilarious.
trying to be her friend.
So poor Len, you know, they cut to Len and she's doing her work, you know, quietly doing her work while this madness is ensuing. And that's really like, it's almost like a comedic moment. Definitely some contrast, you know, these ladies who are rich and entitled and just like totally screaming at each other, and they cut to Len who's just calmly doing her work, and poor Len, that's all I could say about that.
Trying to be her friend, which
Yeah.
is a lot more than you have
By
been.
going out and getting just as wasted as she
No,
does at
that's
night
not true.
and banging different guys all over the
So that cut to Carol up on the staircase, that's really just to give us some perspective of where the other characters are. We kind of need to know where all of the players are, and Carol now is brought into this storyline by showing her leaning over the balcony to see what's going on. Now, this could have been an editing trick. Carol could have been leaning over the balcony, when they were starting dinner or something like that, and they decided to use that footage. Who knows where it came from, but it works perfectly in this to show Carol has now entered the chat.
Can you stop screaming? I came in thinking this was going to be a fun party. I don't know how this went from slumber party to slaughter party. Can you stop screaming now?
And then they included that clip of Jules actually going to Len's area and kind of walking away. I don't know if she's necessarily walking away with Len, but it does feel almost like symbolically Jules is trying to go to where the calm and the peace is, which is with Len.
You guys home to her house.
This is why I didn't have Sonia, because she can't handle this.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have had Luann either, because she seems to be screaming at everyone
I
too.
didn't know that.
Bethany's not being very considerate.
So this cutaway to where Carol and Dorinda are really talking about what's going on downstairs, it's really just to provide us perspective of what's going on in the other characters' minds. What are they thinking? It's also breaking the tension a bit because the fight is so heated now between Luann and Bethany. It's obviously not ceasing. Bethany keeps coming back. She says she's walking away, but she keeps coming back. So we have to break the tension a little bit by kind of cutting away to a reaction to what is going on in this fight.
Very considerate to me, the host. I had visions of sugar plums dancing.
And I haven't seen this done a lot, but I really like that while Dorinda's talking about how she's upset that this is going on, they cut back to Bethany and Lou, and they don't have any sound in their fight whatsoever. I haven't seen that a lot on Housewives, which I thought was kind of interesting. I think it's really just to highlight that Dorinda's storyline is the most important piece in this whole sort of buildup. And that's what I talked to you guys at the beginning of this episode, that Dorinda is definitely the main course, and it's a slow build up to Dorinda's breakdown, even though all of this feels big.
Plums dancing through my head. It's all going the wrong direction.
That's
Can
being
you
her
start?
friend.
Can you
At
stop
least I
screaming
told
now?
her. At least
Can you
I-
stop screaming now?
So she's like, it's all going the wrong direction. They cut straight to Bethany and she's screaming, and Luann's screaming back. They're definitely in a heated conversation, and it's really from Dorinda's perspective. Remember, we kind of ended on Dorinda's perspective. We are seeing that this is really affecting Dorinda, right? Just that little look, just her little reaction, and her saying it's going the wrong direction from her confessional. We are now kind of in Dorinda's mind that she is not happy with all of this going on. That didn't necessarily have to be her reaction. She could have just been like, oh, the ladies are doing their thing, whatever, and been kind of cool with it. But she's clearly not cool with it.
Now,
At
can you
least I tell her
get
I'm
under
not
control?
screaming.
Get in control of
Because
yourself.
I'm sick of the way that you live and
You're
pretend.
sick of the way that I live.
And
You
sit
know
here and go,
nothing about how I live.
That was such a weird cut to me because Luann was saying
Get under control.
Bethany's like,
Control of
Because I'm
yourself.
sick of the way that you live.
it felt like almost a response to a different sentence, if you guys know what I mean. Almost like a question. Usually a question is answered with a because blank, right? But Luann seems like she's just saying a statement, and then Bethany comes in with a because. I don't know if that was editing or if Bethany was just worked up, or if Bethany was trying to get a line out there that maybe she thought production could use. Whatever it was kind of an odd cut there for me.
Ellen, I wonder what is going on with her. I'm just trying to help her. Really? By bringing guys home to her house, by being just as wasted
Who
as her?
says I bring
every
guys home
night?
and gets
But
wasted?
she
What are you
does.
talking about?
She does. And I'm out at night.
And we can kind of hear the music stops and slows down when Bethany brings this new information into the conversation.
Help her, really? By bringing guys home to her house, by being just as wasted
Who
as her?
says I bring
every
guys home
night?
and gets
But
wasted?
she
What are you
does.
talking about?
She does.
This is really typical when it comes to Housewives fights. When new information is presented or dramatic information, typically what they do is either, button it with a big sound and then pull the sound out completely so we really focus on the words, or they just, like in this moment, they just started to fade the music out and completely took it out by the time that Bethany's saying that, Sonia says this about you. That's new information for all of us, the audience.
I'm out at night seeing you guys
Now you're
wasted.
talking about me.
Yes. Sonia says you bring guys home every night to her
Well, that's not
house.
true.
Luann's been staying at my house because she's been shacking up with some guys. Well, who does she have? What guys she have at night? There's a couple guys.
You know what? I had a very dry spell, and all of a sudden.
So not only are they showing a flashback, saying exactly what Sonia said, and probably, I don't think Bethany's in that scene particularly, but they have Sonia saying it, so it's like clearly Sonia does feel this. She probably told Bethany the same thing. And then not only do they have that, but they have Luann affirming it, affirming basically that she went through a dry spell and now she's not denying the fact that, she has guys going to Sonia's place. So it's like, oof, it's all, the receipts, as they would say, are there.
And all of a sudden, the sky has opened up, and it's raining back.
You're wet.
And I
Is
haven't
this your
been at
pizza
Sonia's
tub?
every night, so
Well,
that's
I
not
thought you
true.
were living there. Well, you've been looking for an apartment.
But the same hairstyle, it's true.
Well, that is
Biatch.
true. Luann's is like, oh, your haircut. And by the way, your hair's looking a lot.
Luann's little reaction.
The same hairstyle, it's true.
Well, that is
Biatch.
true. Luann's is like,
It just felt very early 2000s to me or something. It was just funny. It was like something that a mom would say and the teenage daughter would roll her eyes. I don't know. I feel that because now I have a daughter. I know she's going to be rolling her eyes at me all the time. It's like, I'm ready for it. Anyway, the funny thing about that from an editorial standpoint is once she brings up the hair, the music sort of changes to this sort of like silly, cartoonish cue.
The same hairstyle, it's true.
well, that is
Biatch.
true. Luann's is like, oh, your haircut. And by the way, your hair's looking a lot like mine. I'm like,
Opposed to they were having this fight that felt more serious, and then she brings up this really petty, housewives type thing, like basically you copied my hairstyle, so the music reflects that.
oh, your haircut. And by the way, your hair's looking a lot like mine. I'm like, what are you, single white drag queen?
Ugh, piece of shit.
All I could think in this moment rewatching this was how awkward it would be to be in a house where there's two people who have just fought like that. But that's so Real Housewives of New York to me. They could go and get in these blowout fights and then be like, okay, let's have shots or whatever. Oh my God, crack me up.
What is?
I just said it all. I was like, you're a whore, you a different guy every single night, and you pretend that you don't. I just lost my mind. I don't know where I am. I just need to lay down. Say what I said to Luann.
So they have Bethany coming up the stairs. She clues in Carol and Dorinda on what just happened, and then she walks away, and then we get this reaction shot from Carol and Dorinda. I was never Team Carol or Team Bethany or anything like that, but I do miss Carol on my screen. I just loved having her there. I don't know why. I know people, either did like her or didn't like her. I don't know. I think some of these older eras, I just miss that group of friends because during the seasons they become my friends, and I'm like, oh, I just kind of miss all of them. What do you guys think? Do you guys miss Carol? Do you miss Bethany? Are you with me or are you unsubscribing because you hate them? It's all so controversial. I mean, it's crazy. Sometimes I'll put out my breakdowns, my editing breakdowns with my opinions in there a little bit. And the comments that I get, they're like, I am unsubscribing to your channel because you like this housewife. I'm like, are you serious? This is fun, guys. This is supposed to be fun. And they're all supposed to be our friends. And yes, we don't like violence. There's a lot of things we don't like, but I think that's what we love about the housewives is they kind of represent pieces of ourselves or pieces of our friends in real life or things that we've seen in real life just magnified, right? Everything is magnified with them. So when I say I like a housewife for the show or that I miss a housewife, if they've put out a racist tweet since then, I clearly am not saying I miss them because I condone a racist tweet or something like that. I hope that's obvious to you guys. I miss them on the show. I miss what they brought. I miss their dynamic in the group. All of that. I know I don't need to make that disclaimer, but just in case it wasn't clear.
I took a giant shit. And I felt some relief, but it's embarrassing. I'm at someone else's house. I just called someone a whore. It's maybe past my bedtime.
Why do you get so upset about her?
Because I have it.
Now, the timing on that was so funny to me. Bethany's doing this funny confessional, which I miss her funny, hilarious confessionals. I just think she was so good in confessional. But they quickly, almost overlap Carol saying her line as she's walking in.
Maybe past my bedtime.
Why do you get so upset about her?
They almost overlap it with Bethany's confessional. And I've talked to you guys about before that brevity is the soul of wit. So it's the same with editing. Sometimes using quick cuts and quick overlaps, quick prelaps with the dialogue can make it even more comical.
Because I have it. because I have a part of me that can't deal with bullshit, so I don't sit and do. This is why I don't go to lunch with ladies on the Upper East Side. This is why I don't go to cocktail parties, because I don't like people bullshitting each other.
Meanwhile, I heard.
I almost feel like this is such a random take, but I was rewatching this and I was thinking about it. I feel like Bethany really liked Carol as a friend. I think Bethany really was showing herself to Carol and really liked her. I think that's why the blowout between them was so tough. I think Bethany has so much of a hard time being vulnerable, and when she does, it's a big risk for her, I think, internally. And I think she took a big risk in being Carol's friend and showing herself. And even in this moment, what therapists talk about, they talk about triangulating, like where you bring someone else into the conversation, or you talk to someone else and you're kind of like talking to your partner through someone else. I might be getting that wrong. I'm not sure. Some of you out there are like therapists and you guys can tell me if I'm right. But I think what's interesting is she's talking about this conversation with Luann. She's talking to Dorinda and Carol. And I almost feel like she's almost like trying to tell Carol about herself in this conversation talking about Luann. Does that make sense? Am I just drank too much eggnog? I don't know. Tell me.
I heard last week.
I think I'm under a lot of stress anyway.
I know. Girl,
And I just gave it
And
to
you
her.
guys do you, okay? So whatever you do,
I think the sight of her is what just got to me.
Jules? Hi, just calling my dad.
Okay, so as Jules walks outside, the music changes to melancholy, serious tone.
Hi, just calling my dad.
This kind of cartoony thing came in when Luann was talking about Bethany's hair, and then the music kind of went out. All the girls were congregating upstairs, kind of talking, and then Jules is walking outside and you hear the music totally shift. There's definitely a tone shift going on here because what Jules is dealing with, which is the illness of her father, that's serious stuff, right?
The doctor's coming in.
I don't know what to do.
Can't stay here. No, you just.
I'm sorry, it wasn't Jules going outside, it was Luann, but Jules is sitting outside. Same, everything what I just said is exactly the same. Now they're shooting through the door, so you can see that there's the reflection of the pane of glass, and it's almost like fly on the wall stuff. They also have a camera behind them, which we'll see in a second, but this fly on the wall kind of seeing through the windows, through the door, it's a really good technique to make us feel like we're seeing something we're not supposed to see, which is a great thing for reality TV. We see it nowadays still on our franchises, but they used it back then a lot, and I honestly don't think they did it on purpose. I think there was just a camera person inside, and they just happened to catch them at this different angle, and I just love it. I love seeing these sort of fly on the wall, like we weren't supposed to see that. But the funniest thing about this is that they really overlapped the dialogue between Jules talking about something serious, the illness of her father, and Luann talking about, I can't believe that they said that to me, something so inconsequential. I don't know if the editors actually overlapped that dialogue or if they were actually overlapping talking about that, but man, it made me laugh. Not at Jules' expense, but just at the fact that Luann is so delusional in this moment. It's unbearable.
What you just did to me. I feel so bad I can't even concentrate because my dad sounds like he's not even coherent. So hurtful what you just said to me.
Okay, so I just have a feeling they manipulated the dialogue here because it's the backs of their heads. We can't see them in a two-shot talking where this is actually happening. But Jules is talking about something very serious. The music is right in line with Jules. Luann lights a cigarette, and then we put in an audio, which I don't know, it could have been what she said, but the hint is that they weren't on their faces there, and they do have the two-shot eventually of their two faces. But she says,
Not even coherent. So hurtful what you just said to me.
totally ignoring the fact that Jules is talking about her ailing father. What Luann is talking about does not even compare. And it's, honestly, if this was what the editors did, it's just so funny.
Said to me. You know what? I have to tell you something. There's bigger things in life, so who cares? Don't cry. Don't even worry about it.
I can't stay here.
Yes, you can. You can make it better. At least it's
I'm
over
not
and done
gonna make
with.
anything better. That was so ugly.
Honestly, there's more problems in life. Like, my dad is dying, and I'm not even there. And has pneumonia.
So they're cutting back and forth between these two angles, probably because their conversation was super long, and they're just picking the stuff that makes the most sense in this narrative of this storyline right here between the two of them, which really, in all honesty, is like Luann is totally ignoring Jules's feelings. Jules is obviously has something serious going on, and there's comedy to it, and there's also character building showing, you know, Luann has a bit of a narcissistic tendency. You know, I can't say she's narcissistic because I think that's actually a medical term, but I would say her tendency is narcissistic.
And he doesn't sound right, and like, that was awful.
What she just did to me, and I mean, I'm so tired of it.
So I just know they manipulated the dialogue in this little bit right there, because you can barely see Luann's face on that first kind of fly on the wall shot. And you can see she's saying something. And then they cut to her where she's, you know, where it's closer, where the camera person's actually outside and she's finishing her sentence. I think that the sentence was done later, not cutting Jules off talking about her father, but they kind of manipulated it in that fly on the wall shot, if you guys can kind of follow that.
She attacks you. I mean, what did I do to her? Nothing.
all right, Lou.
And the music really goes along with it too, right? The music kind of has that like cartoonish.
Attacks you. I mean, what did I do to her? Nothing.
I almost think of it as like WTF music. Like, what the heck is going on? Every time we hear this music come up, it's like someone doing something crazy or someone saying something crazy in the middle of something that should not be, you know, a crazy conversation. It's just so funny to me, and they use it here so well. And Jules's face is just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going through this.
Man, sick dad, you're a slut. All right, I'll talk to you about being a whore. This is Dorinda's house. It's about Dorinda.
Okay, and then Jules' confessional is very like an inner thoughts confessional, right? They cut to her as well, like listening to Luann, and her inner thoughts are what? They're very grounded for us because they're much like our inner thoughts.
Is that?
I know it's all about Dorinda, and Dorinda didn't come to my defense. She just stood there. Well, thank you for defending me, hostess, with the mostess.
I'm not here to defend you.
I can't stay here.
So the conversation, again, I believe it was like a longer conversation out there between the two of them, but the conversation kind of immediately goes to Dorinda and what Dorinda didn't do. Now, Luann did say that. She said, was Dorinda even there for their fight? I thought Dorinda was like upstairs, like getting the house together. I don't even know, but Luann's upset at Dorinda. They definitely want to show this moment because, again, like I told you guys, I do believe this whole thing is a slow build leading to Dorinda's meltdown. And so they have to include this moment where Dorinda is brought into it as, you know, she did something wrong in her own home.
House with these people, they're horrible.
But we're supposed to have a nice lunch and all arrive at my
Oh, forget
home.
about your nice lunch.
But the
Guess
positive
what?
part of it
Guess
is
what?
that
Did you hear what she just said to me?
What'd she say
I
now?
called her a slut. I said that's
You
a
know
compliment.
Tom, okay? Ramona said she's been dating Tom for a while now. That's not true. It's a lie. Ramona said that, you know, you should have called me. You're dating Tom.
They're just really dragging this on. You can hear the music back there too. It's that same WTF music. They're dragging this on that Luann just cannot let this go, what Bethany said. I mean, obviously the lady doth protest too much, right? She's really like, I do not bring guys home. I do not do this. I do not. And it's like what Jules said, like, just take it as a compliment. Just be like, yeah, that's it. That is what's happening in my life right now.
That, you know, you should have called me. You're dating Tom. And of course, Bethany knows all. She knows everything. So apparently,
what's
Bethany's
Ramona
been
got to
following
do
my
with
romantic
Tom?
life and says, oh, I know everything you're doing. You're fucking everybody in this.
And you stood there.
You
That's what I'm saying.
And Dorinda's saying,
Apparently,
what's
Bethany's
Ramona
been
got to
following
do
my
with
romantic
Tom?
life.
they're just bringing Tom into this, they're bringing Ramona into this, which again is so Housewives, especially since Jules is sitting out there who's dealing with her father. She's really struggling with this, but we're talking about Ramona and Tom and Dorinda not being there, and just, it's so random.
I hear her say that, Luann.
Neither did I. You need to go in as the hostess and say, you know what, back it up or get the, because I'm here, I'm your guest, and I'm not staying.
It's not my job in my home to defend her. Certainly don't need to be the host.
I love this thing that they're doing. They don't do this a lot now, but when they cut to confessional and then they cut back to the ladies still talking, but there's no sound there,
It's not my job in my home to defend her. Certainly don't need to be the host.
I really like it. Usually now what they do is they show reaction shots, but here they're actually showing them like talking or continuing to fight. And on a side note, like Luann takes stuff so seriously. This is what makes her a great housewife, in my opinion. She's so delusional about things like this. Like, she really is like, this is the most important thing in the world. You were not there for me. It just cracks me up.
Be the host. the cook, the decorator, and act as a defender. You know, these are big girls.
You need to tell her to back up. You need her to back it up.
I need to tell her to all stop.
You need to back it up.
All rumbling on.
You need to back it up or I'm leaving.
Okay, so after Luann says she might be leaving if Dorinda doesn't back her up, they close up in on Dorinda, and it's definitely a foreshadowing. What's building inside of Dorinda is what's going to be culminating at the end of this episode or at the end of this scene. So basically, Luann is threatening her, if you don't go tell your guest that she can't talk to me like that, I'm not going to stay here anymore. Like, it's so bizarre, right? And Dorinda feels it's bizarre, but it's also stacking up on her. She's got a lot going on. She even said it in her confessional, you know, she's doing all of the things. Why being a defender or like a mediator? That should not be one of the things.
She's obsessed with my hair. Every time I see her, she goes, your hair's looking pretty much like mine.
She's full of so she's trying to
But I think my hair kind of might, I gotta look in the mirror. My hair might look like hers.
It does look a little too.
So now they break, you know, that scene up, which was Dorinda and Lou and Jules. They have to break away from that. So now they're breaking away to the other group of girls. Like, what's going on over here? What are they talking about? And it's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit funnier. She's talking about the hair comment. She's talking about how maybe her hair does look like Lou. It's lightening up the mood just a little bit.
She kind of reminds you of somebody.
Yeah,
And I realized
I
your hair
think
is
so. Now what I was like, get a pair of scissors.
No, I
out.
like it though. Let's
So get a pair of scissors. Who knows how to cut hair? Does anybody here? I bet
Yours is pretty. I like it.
Wow, that got out of hand quickly.
I'm so happy it had nothing to do with you or me. But you know what?
For once.
Poor Dorinda can't have a normal party.
And then after Dorinda says, for once, like, the drama's not been with me, they sort of have this stinger at the end.
You know
For
what?
once.
And then we go back to the room where Bethany's talking to Carol, and it's sort of, again, fun, giggly, like girl time, you know, sleepover style stuff. And they also have the music cue, which is very Real Housewives of New York.
Party. She can't have a normal
It's very New York. You guys can hear it.
party.
She really does have a good heart. She's just like wants everyone to
No,
get
think
along.
about it. Last year, her birthday.
Right.
I don't want to do that. No, just walk away. I can't even walk away. Okay. All right. I just can't. This house and I do not get along. Dorinda should not get into the hospitality business.
So they did that flashback with Bethany, like acting like a mess at the Berkshires again. So it's kind of giving us some context, like, oh yeah, Bethany can be a mess there.
Hospitality business. Let's just put it that way. Because whatever evil spell she puts over her events, I walk right into it. You're just so happy that this isn't your fight. Like, you're so happy. That's what
And then they have Bethany's talking over while they show Jules running up the stairs. This is to really give us space and time because we lost Jules. So we do need to see her kind of walking up the stairs. It's just a nice way to do coverage over Bethany's dialogue.
That's what you're so happy that, like, you're not really involved.
Hi, Dorinda.
Poor you, your parties. You have the greatest parties, the lingerie party.
Yes.
Last year.
I'm a walking action. A lot of action.
So the music has changed now. It's very light and fun. You know, the girls are talking very like sleepover style.
Like, you're not really involved.
Hi, Dorinda.
Poor you, your parties. You have the greatest parties, the lingerie party.
Yeah.
Dorinda jumps on the bed. The music is light. It's sort of putting us in this place of like, oh, the conflict is over. Luann isn't here yet. We know Luann brings the conflict because she's still so obsessed with this whole fight with Bethany. We saw it outside, but at least we're having this sort of light moment to break it up before dun dun dun, what's about to come.
Your
You
place.
really know.
I'm a rocking shit show.
Is this my room?
And somehow I think in
I'm
my
coming- I'm
mind
moving
that
in.
like
This is a good old-fashioned slumber party. Bunch of girls giggling on a bed.
I was outside calling my dad. And she came out. She's like, she called me a slut.
So as Jules is talking, you can still hear the ladies' voices in the background.
Calling my dad. And she came out. She's like, she called me a slut.
They're lower, their mics are definitely turned down, but the editors want to keep those voices in because they want to illuminate what Carol just said, which is this is a good old-fashioned sleepover. You know, everyone's talking, they're laughing. We're definitely honed in on Jules right now while she's talking about what just went down with Countess Luann outside, but we can still hear the chatter in the background. The chatter isn't totally pulled out because what Jules is saying is not like revolutionary, groundbreaking, which is just a little piece of information for all the girls to know.
Slut. I'm like, you know what? This is nonsense. Like, I'm on the phone with my dad
This is like life. I was like, there's so many more important things, but then you know me, I'm subservient, you know, I listen, whatever.
Are you subservient? Oh, really? Let's talk to Michael about that, because Michael doesn't really describe you like that.
No.
So they leave all that in because it's just like character building for Jules, where she's like down on herself, like I'm subservient, I'm a people pleaser type of thing. Dorinda's calling her on it. It's all very fun, but also mixed in with some character development about Jules.
No, listen, I'm in a relationship with him for 10 years. We're married for 8, but like 10.
Of course you disagree.
We're totally different people. I'm wild and he's conservative.
And then, Jules is going off about her relationship with her husband, which I think is like, she's really trying to get that in there. I do believe, Andy said this before, a lot of housewives get onto the show to get out of their marriages. And I think Jules might fall into that category. I don't think she came onto this show being like, I have the best marriage ever and I want to keep it. I think that there's a lot of time where I see her kind of interjecting that like, I do so much in my relationship, or we're different people, really trying to set the stage for what's about to come. And then as Luann walks in, we get this sort of knife sharpening sound.
We're totally different people. I'm wild and he's
Dun dun dun, Luann has entered the chat. All of this fun kind of slumber party girls time might now be changed.
conservative.
Look, I was happy to be here, but how can I stay with this kind of environment?
You're leaving?
No, it's like,
What I love, again, Luann with her like very focused on herself. She comes in, the line she says has nothing to do with what they're talking about, but I do believe she really thought in that moment, unless the editors did something interesting here where they said something and then she responded, they're really trying to show her, which I actually think is really how it happened, because it just reminds me of what Luann would do, but they're really trying to show like she's not even connected to reality. They're talking about Jules' relationship and she comes in almost like she knows that they're talking about her. Like she thinks in this moment, the way the editors cut it, and it may have gone down like this, which I do believe it did, she's thinking she's walking into a room of ladies talking about how she's going to leave if Dorinda doesn't do something to Bethany, but it couldn't be further from the truth. We're talking about Jules' relationship with her husband. She thinks she's continuing and contributing to this conversation, which is what makes Lou just a fantastic housewife, in my opinion.
Oh, I thought you had your
Here, just
I
come.
thought we were here to have a good time.
Here, come.
your thingamabobber.
Yeah, I thought we were too. I've worked very hard on it.
This group has so much trouble getting along these days.
And then Ramona, takes Luann out of there because she's like, let's get another scene to the side that doesn't have anything to do, what we're talking about in here doesn't have anything to do with it. I'd like, a two-shot moment with you outside a different scene. And then we do hear this line where Dorinda says,
I've worked very hard on it.
whether or not that line was said there, it was very important for the editors to put it in there because, again, we are building to Dorinda's big moment.
These days, I don't know what's in our water. What kind of Kool-Aid are we all drinking?
Why should I stay here and put up with this bullshit? I mean, what am I doing here? Why? This is not fun.
And as a side note, I was looking at the confessionals. The confessionals are so different than the confessionals today. First of all, the ladies don't look like they were in glam for 8 hours. Their outfits are maybe a little bit more casual, a little bit less like chosen. I'm sure they chose like something nice in their closet. They're obviously doing these confessionals just like, oh yeah, I gotta do those, but it's not the same as today. Not as much glam, not as much looks, in this. And also it's very close. You can see the backgrounds, it's a green screen background, but it's very close on their face, much different than today.
You are friends with me, you're friends with Jules, you're friends with
Dorinda, I came for her birthday party, which
Birthday
is
celebration
apparently
weekend.
not a birthday
And we got
party.
this cake.
No, it's not my birthday. Happy birthday, Dorinda.
So I put down in my notes, I was like, is this where Luann learned that she wanted to do cabaret? Because in this whole scene, it's like she's doing like a comedic monologue. And the more she speaks, the more Ramona laughs.
Happy birthday, Dorinda. Her mother made the cake. Hello, point.
It's kind of one of those things where I was like, Ramona, don't laugh at her. You're egging her on. You're making her think that she's hilarious, but she's not. I was like, I wonder if this is where she got the idea, like, you know what? I should really bring this to the stage. It gave me concern watching it.
Happy birthday, Dorinda. Her mother made the cake. Hello, point taken. No, it's not my birthday celebration. Then why is there a birthday cake with her name on it? Because her mother made it.
Because she's wanting somebody to feel bad.
Okay, so we're really showing Luann like roasting Dorinda, right, in her own home. Again, building to this moment, eventually what we're gonna see with Dorinda.
I'm like, are you kidding me? And Bethany is like telling me I'm a slut. You're a slut. You're this. You're that. I'm like, where did this come from? And then she's flicking around her new hair like it's mine. Really?
So they're really playing up that Ramona is laughing at what Luann is saying. Luann is obviously talking about the group, talking about Bethany. They cut to Bethany walking almost into the kitchen while we can still hear the laughter and sort of the digs being said. And so we see Bethany walk up, and it's almost like she's listening in on this conversation. Again, it's building tension. If all of the tension was kind of brought out of the room, we had a nice scene upstairs, maybe all the girls are feeling better, and then Bethany comes down, and what is happening? They're talking about her, they're laughing about her. It's not going to go well from here.
Really?
Compete. That's all I really want to do. She's like, that's fine. And I'm uncomfortable.
What? You uncomfortable? Don't.
And now I want to stay here and have a party?
That moment with Jules made me miss her when she said,
You uncomfortable? Don't.
I felt like that was a very real moment, and it just made me miss Jules. I think Jules should have had another season. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments. I just feel like Jules had so much more in her. I mean, the calzone moment, like there was so much about Jules that I needed to know more about, the divorce, all of this stuff, but she was gone. I don't know if it was her decision or what happened, but I needed more.
We're gonna have a party for Dorinda's non-birthday where the cake is over there. It says happy birthday, Dorinda.
Stop it, Louise.
By the way, look, your cake is right there. It's right there. It says happy birthday,
My
Dorinda.
mother bought this weekend.
Don't
My
yell.
mother bought this weekend.
Okay, so the music shifts once Dorinda comes in.
My mother bought this weekend.
Don't
My
yell.
mother bought this
I don't need another
weekend.
person.
She hears Luann talking about the mom's birthday cake, and then Dorinda starts doing the Dorinda. It feels like you're not sure if she's serious or if she's, lighthearted about it, but it starts to kind of turn. I really relate with this because I do this with my kids all the time. I'll be like lighthearted about something, and then something will shift in me where I'm like, no, I'm serious about this right now. And they can hear the tone of voice shift in me. And I feel it from Dorinda. Is it anger inside of me like it might be inside of Dorinda? I don't think so. Maybe it's just a little bit of built up tension when I'm talking to my kids, especially over the weekend. I just got done with the weekend where I was just like, oh my gosh, like I haven't sat down for 60 seconds. Like even when the kids are taking a nap and I'm like, finally, and I sit down, the baby starts crying and I'm just like, oh my gosh. Instead of want to crawl into a hole and fall asleep, I want to watch Housewives. I want to talk Housewives. It's really my escape. That's what I was saying at the beginning of this video. The holiday season isn't for everyone. I know holidays can be melancholy, they can be lonely. So just know that I am here for you. Every time that I feel some little bit of stress, I just think about the Housewives and I think about you guys. So hopefully you can do the same.
That person yelling at me.
Don't say that. You can talk about me. You can talk about my house. You can talk about my decorations. But do not mess with Diane Sincala's birthday cake. When it comes to my mother, you don't.
So just as a side note, Dorinda's confessional look is so like bright and random and does not match her background at all. This just really reminds me of like back in the day, the confessionals, they wanted to dress up for them, but just definitely not like today.
My mother, you don't go there.
Don't say my non-birthday birthday. It's not my birthday. My mother bought this on Saturday. So don't say that. I think everybody's acting very poorly. I put in a...
She's starting to turn. Remember when Luann said that about her? Like she's starting. You can see the shift going from like lighthearted about her birthday to like now she's about to throw down.
I put in a big effort here.
I agree.
And this is my home.
I agree.
And I made a conscious choice not to invite Sonia so we could all have a good time.
I agree. So get your...
And I think it's a disgrace of you people.
Okay, so Luann is starting to be like, okay, I agree, so you need to get your guests in order, like she's about to point to Bethany. But then Carol comes in and Carol's kind of like, oh gosh, I've seen a shift now. The energy has shifted. It's not just lighthearted, silly fights, like Dorinda is serious. Carol's coming in to kind of diffuse the situation.
Okay, Dorinda. You know what? You go to a place, you hold your face to yourself.
We're sorry. We have to
I
shut our
cooked
mouth.
all day. I decorated. I did it nice. I'm ashamed. If no one can behave themselves,
So when she says, I did it nice, I'm ashamed. And then you see Luann's face looks like, oh, she's serious. She looks a little bit sad. And then the music.
No one can behave themselves.
And then now she's really rolling into her thing. So the music is down and out. Let's see where it goes.
Behave themselves, then you all go home. I give you permission. All go home. Because I decorate.
Okay, so now we have some battlefield music.
I give you permission. All go home. Because I decorated.
It's definitely telling us that we're ramping up to something, and this is as Dorinda is starting to ramp. Again, when she ramps, especially back in the day before it got a little bit darker, I just can feel it, and I feel it in my soul. You can hear after she says her iconic line, I made it nice, there's two big drums. There's definitely a lot of sound work, a lot of music work going on here to show that this is serious, and the cuts are a little bit quicker.
Go home.
Coming up.
Less invasive is the probe. This is not as-
Oh my God.
I know it's not necessarily in, the edit of the actual scenes, but I do think it's so funny when they have like a serious moment and then they show like coming up soon and they show something that's definitely not serious whatsoever like they did just there. So that's really it, you guys. That's all I wanted to cover on that scene, the iconic Make It Nice scene. I had so much fun covering this. It was so much fun going back into the Roni files. Happy holidays to all of you. And again, if you are feeling lonely, just turn on some reruns of the old seasons. The Housewives are always there for you, and I am always here for you. So I hope you guys are having a beautiful day, and until next time.